My name is Rati Jafar. I'm the director of the Indo-Korean Cultural and Information Center, headquartered here in Chennai, India. And over the last 15 years or so, we've had an extraordinary intercultural dialogue with South Korea, linking artists and organizations and people generally, and focusing through the performing and visual arts, through language, through wellness traditions, and through information provision on the rich historical links between India and Korea, ancient as they may be, but also the more contemporary resonances of this dialogue. The opportunity as of last year, because of the pandemic, meant that we moved entirely online, moving away from physical touring and presentation to linking online. And it's had its advantages and its challenges. I want to focus more on the advantages because I think we learned a lot along the way, how to stay connected. And for us, it's always been about the arts and the central role it plays in terms of linking communities, of opening access, of being as inclusive as possible, of extending that dialogue meaningfully. So I want to cut to the context of today's event because I know we have an exciting panel discussion ahead of us. Don't want to take up too much time. When this film was brought to my notice by a very good friend and a good contact, Claire Sung from Korea, what struck me very much about it was how in a matter of about 10 or 11 minutes, a story was told, and a story was told holistically and meaningfully, opening discussion and opening thought about what it means to be inclusive. What is the meaning of access? What do we mean by norm and normal? And who defines this? How do we work around this to become as compassionate as possible, but compassionate in a way in which it's not looking down upon, it's not condescending, it's about providing a level playing field. So for me, the first organization that came to mind as the most apt partner was the Ability Foundation. Across disability umbrella organization doing fantastic work in terms of empowerment, rights, advocacy, and also just to raise the level of awareness. We've been associated with this organization for a long time now, particularly with the film festival that they organize every year, and we try as best as possible to get a suitable Korean film to be part of that festival. So delighted to reconnect and to be able to extend the dialogue through this very meaningful panel discussion, which has been put together by the Ability Foundation. Janaki, Jayashri, and team, thank you very much for joining us for this event. Thank you to Juseung and Juho Lee for so generously agreeing to show this film. And very quickly it was put together. And I think with the help of Saksham, we've managed to bring in audio description, and there is English subtitles as well. So to make it as accessible to those who are visually impaired or those who have hearing impairment, to make it. I had a lot of questions yesterday when I sent out the mail and the WhatsApp messages from friends who said, would I be able to, because I am deaf or I'm blind, I don't know, I want to engage with this, but how do I do it? And I said, well, we have these access tools available. Tell us after that whether we were effective enough or whether we need to do something differently. So thank you for the film and thank you for this discussion. Without further ado, I'd like to pass this on to Revati, actor, director Revati, who in India, of course, and I'm sure in Korea and other parts of the world needs no introduction. Such a versatile actor and such an amazing human being in the causes that she supports. So thank you, Revati, for taking this on. And I'm really looking forward to your moderation and questions. For most part, I'm going to be silent listening in. If there's something to add in, I will jump in. But I just want to leave it at a single word, single line where Ability's vision and Juseung and Juho Lee's film kind of coalesce. Ability Foundation says that all it takes is an open mind for people to move forward and learn to be inclusive. And Juho and Juseung in his film says that anything is possible. Anything is possible, and it's only a matter of finding that right fit. So on that note, Revati, to you and to onwards with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rati, for that very, very, I mean, that's a very nice compliment you paid to all of us. Thank you so much. And yes, Juseung and Juho Lee, I too watched the film, and it touched the right chords, because it's a story. It is not a fiction. It's a real story, and the way you have spoken a few words, because there is a story, but exactly like Rati said, you spoke about unlimited possibilities. That is what life is all about, and that's exactly what Ability believes in too. Rati just mentioned it. So it is wonderful to have seen your film, and I think a lot of people would have seen it. Just wanted to say it's there. It will be screening till 23rd of this month. So that's wonderful. So thank you for being here. And I also would like to say, mention Jinsy Jacob, who is doing our sign language interpreter. Thank you, Jinsy. Yes,
Thank you,
because that's very important part of being inclusive, which Ability Foundation has always been with all our programs. So here we have Jinsy, and as far as the last shot of the film, both of you are directors, Juho and Juseung, both of you are directors. The last shot was so amazing. It just showed Juseung standing there with the entire world of opportunities around him. So it's a very beautiful shot. Would you like to say something about it, Juseung?
I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Yes.
Juseung, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So can I keep going, or?
Please do. I was just thinking about the last shot, which actually talked about the limitless possibilities a human being has. It's not about just disabilities. I felt that is what. Did you mean something like that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there is absolutely a limitation in our life. I mean, that's not actually the thing, but what I actually think limitation actually means that we can actually figure out how to get over with. And there is always a way to figure out how to overcome with the problem. It's not like limitation or like an unlimitation to think about. I think that's kind of how I actually view every limitation or problem that I'm kind of having when I leave,
Yeah, I totally understand, because it was a good feeling when you saw that shot. So, Juhu, what did you feel? I mean, what was your visual imagination when you took that shot?
Visual imagination, but
You just left Juseung in that wide space. It's very interesting. It can say a lot.
first of all, I just wanna make him, alone, standing, on the ground. So
Yes.
that's what I was intending. And when first Juseung passed me the script of the film, which he wrote himself, the meaning of the last shot was like people have their own limitations, like I cannot run like Usain Bolt, so that's a limitation I have, but the limitation does not need to be, it doesn't, the limitation, we have our own limitation, but the impairment should not decide the limitation. That's, I think,
Yes.
just was intending. So,
Yes.
so
I think
visually,
yeah. Sorry.
So visually, I just like the white ocean behind him. It looks like full of, possibilities and chances that we have, and yeah.
Thank
Also,
you.
I like
Yes, I think
the-
yes, it came through very well. Congratulations to both of you. And we are talking about inclusive society, the attitude and acceptance, and that's exactly what your film has also talked about. So I'd like to invite Jayashree Ravindran, who is the founder of Ability Foundation, and I would say my guide with regards to this entire this possibilities that she taught to me. So I would like her to say a few words about this. Jayashree, what do you think, and what is your words for this evening?
I think in this regard, I have a lot of things to say. I just had to put my thoughts together and somehow, but at the outset, let me say that I've been a great fan of Korean cinema and the dramas that I see on Netflix every other day. And thanks to the subtitles, I have everything. I don't miss a word. That's what we talk about as access. Right from the beginning, when we formed Ability Foundation, here I was talking about access and inclusion at a time when nobody really understood the word. But somehow, as you say, visual impaired, I come up from a world that cannot hear. And I've lived all my life in a hearing world. But never for a moment have I felt I have missed out on anything. Of course, I've had my ups and my downs, my tears and my everything that everyone goes through. What I liked very much when in your film was to just talk about all the negative things and the positive things in a very matter-of-fact way, without exaggerating anything or extenuating anything. It's just facts. And I love the line you use. I do not want to be a role model just because I'm a visual impaired person. That's something that I have been going through every single time somebody tells me I'm proud of you.
Yeah,
So I say I'm proud of you too.
yeah.
You see, that's the
I hear you.
thinking. Disability is not a criteria to establish something. Don't lower yourself just because the other person happens to be a person with disability. Which is why the magazine that we began right from day one talked about beautiful people with disabilities who did not allow their disability to stop them, nor allow other people to tell them what they could do or could not do. A person with disability is proud of himself or herself. There is no need for any. I'm against the word compassion because compassion is something that every human being should have. It's not disability versus non-disability. So 100,000 thoughts rush into my head. And inclusion, of course, goes on. For me, there is inclusion only when you talk about exclusion. No, where is the need to have exclusion? We are all people first. They are not creatures from another planet.
Yeah.
Neither are we some kind of second-hand rejected goods. People, some can see, some can't see, some can hear, some can't hear, etc., etc. That is how it goes. But I really think I should stop myself now. That, otherwise, I'll let myself carried away in this. So let me pass the baton back to Revati to take it forward.
Knowing you, I know this is such a passionate thought in you, and you've always wondered. She's always questioned why do people ever think that anything is different? So that's her thought, and that's why there's so many things that around. I would like to ask Akhil. Akhil, hi, are you there?
Hi, ma'am. Hello. I will speak for him. Okay.
Sorry.
I saw the movie, and at a particular moment, I saw all the subtitles and.
I'm sorry.
Akhil,
Akhil, can you hear me? Or we have another very interesting person. He calls himself RJ Dam. Saimdev, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Saimdev, it's so wonderful, and Saimdev has, he has donned several hats, because he has been an RJ, and he's also been part of this Enable India, where when he works on innovation and solutions for people with disabilities. It's amazing the kind of work you do, Saimdev. What are your thoughts on this attitude and acceptance and inclusive society? What are your thoughts on this?
Ma'am, to start with, I'd like to thank Ability Foundation for having me in this house. And accessibility, attitude, and the factors of disability. To begin with, I would like to tell one particular thing that I liked about the movie the most. That is, the audio descriptions were not at all hampering the view of the movie. In other movies, what happens, because I also acted in movies and theaters, in other movies, whatever audio description I have seen, it kind of takes my focus away from the actual screen. And in this particular movie, I saw the audio description is not at all hampering the lineup of the shots or the screenplay, because of the voice, because of the sound management, and because of the certain technical things that are minutely have been noted in the audio description part. Thank you for that. Now, coming about disability and inclusion, I would like to tell that disability and inclusion is a factor that we need to work on. I often bring an analogy, that is, when women revolution movement started, it was almost now going to be 200 years. So disability movement is hardly 70 years, or even I can say that if it is 100 years. So we will need time to establish certain uh, aspects about the accessibility, about every part of inclusion, because any social change needs time, and we need to have the patience. As a person with disabilities, we need to have the patience, and there are lots of responsibilities which lies on us also, and there are certain cases that we need to take the initiative, and in certain cases we need to let go of the initiative. And these are the things that we need to comprehend and understand in various steps, various tiers, and we need to take various calls in various times, which may or may not be good or bad. So this is what I thought about inclusion and accessibility being in my place.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll continue this discussion, of course. I'm sorry, Akil, I know you will be reading what I'm speaking, but can Akil be put on the main screen so we can see him sign back what he feels about inclusion and acceptance, as we will listen to Jinsi interpreting it.
I have seen the movie, and what I like most was topic, the topic disability and how it can be prevented and how it is possibilities. And it is a strong theme there. And it is easily to the public to understand what the things, what are the disabilities and what is the limitation for that. Is it any limitation for the disability? No, it is possible. Anything can do. And we can achieve our own initiatives and dreams and aims. And if there are persons like visually impaired persons, and they have their own limitations, but it can be overcome in the education institutions, and they will instigate and they don't give respect to the deaf people. And we have our own concepts and ideas, but it is not well maintained. But if a person like a deaf person is here and he is talking, and they are trying to making a loud noise regarding the deaf person. But in the future, we can see they will get the awareness, like, and we can inclusively include the ideas, and we can change a better place. In the future, deaf people or deaf persons or other disabled persons, we can easily access and give more respect. After all, the movie was very good, and it was well planned and well created, the shooting, and hands off to the team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akhil. And yeah, I think everybody agrees that the movie, said its message so loud and clear. And everybody agrees that, there is no need to underline any kind of a disability, and we need to move on as human beings. So when we talk about, acceptance and attitude, this is exactly what we're talking about. So with regards to this attitude and how do we make people accept, do you think movies, all the media that we have these days, social media, they are so powerful, how can we use them? Juho, since you have made this film, you understand how much it has reached and how people have reacted to the film. Could you just tell us, how do you feel about this?
I've been thinking that as a filmmaker, it's very arrogant attitude that a single film can change the world, because the change and maybe revolution or that kind of thing, I think it's collective thing. People need to be gathered or help each other or have an effect each other. So film is have a role in that process. But as a filmmaker, I don't think a single film can change the world. So sometimes I see some filmmakers who have believed that my film can change the world. My film can make this world a lot better. There's a filmmakers like that, and I see they sometimes exploit the character of the film, especially in a documentary, when, you know, this is not a fiction, so things can not be happen as the filmmaker as intended. So when that kind of thing happens, certain filmmakers make the character do something the filmmaker wants, even the character doesn't want to do something. So a film has a very small part in changing the world, but I hopefully my film can affect some people, but I'm not trying to be arrogant or, you know, over exaggerate the role of the film.
Yes, I do understand, Juho, how you feel, but I think it makes, you know, every single film makes people think about it, and that is what creates the change in attitudes. There is just one more thing, because Korea is the art, theater, and movies. Now, of course, with all the series, OTT platform series are so amazing. How inclusive are all these spaces for people with disabilities?
I guess I can actually answer that question. I think some places are actually accessible, like there is an elevator and those kind of accessibility stuff there. And we are actually getting better. Can you hear me?
Yes. Jusang, I was basically talking about, you have been in the film industry doing background score. So I was just wondering how inclusive is it for actors with disabilities, or, you know, editors, or people, or, you know, theater actors? How inclusive is Korea for artists?
Oh, like for the artist?
Yes.
To be honest, I haven't really experienced with like other like a lot of artists in Korea, because I just came back to Korea like last year. But I think most people are pretty open to what actually just who they are, you know, like they don't get surprised whenever I use the Zoom, or, you know, when I do things they don't really expect the normal people actually do, you know. Then I was like, well, everything is just normal and everyone seems pretty accessible and everyone just accept everything I do. That's kind of what I felt. But I, you know, as usual, I always have to worry about it. Like, how are they going to see me? Are they going to see me weird? But in the end, most of them were not really doing anything wrong or anything bad, or, you know, I feel really comfy every time.
That's nice. You know, Sayam Dev has been an RJ for a very long time. Sayam Dev, what is your thought? I mean, does media, you know, have the power to change attitudes? And if so, how do you think?
Okay, if I could, yeah, Revati ma'am. Am I audible? Okay, so ma'am, this is one of the questions that I am bringing up in every time at every place. That is, media has immense power to reach the masses. And unless we engage with media to create specific programs for people with disabilities, because I, as an RJ, was an RJ, and after me, there was no RJ with disabilities, not with visual impairment, not with wheelchair user. No RJ has been inducted in any other place. Then after that, when I went on to acting, only one movie. Then after that, nothing. No other people came along. I don't want a role for myself. I want people to be included in a broader way in various media programs and various activities that they can go, that they can take. I have tried with lots of media channels that certain programs should be held, but I couldn't gather the support or the finances when I was working in Kolkata. I couldn't gather the support or the finances to take certain programs in media, to take the awareness part forward, because only by using a media channel we would be able to reach out to the masses. And unless we reach out to the masses, the social change will not happen in the speed that we require in our disability sector. So media has immense potential and ability to help the drive the movement that can be called as one of the most important human resource development movement in modern times, because I see all my brothers and sisters with disabilities as human resources who can contribute in, powerfully in economy of the world.
Totally with you, because media has a huge play, and in a way, I feel, thank God, it's not just a responsibility of movies, cinema halls. Now the media has become so much larger. There are so many spaces that we can work with. Jerry, you have been working with media for the longest time, starting magazine, and we have done stage shows, we have done television, we've done radio. So
I think Revati has gone off. Revati has gone off, I think, but if I may just step in, Jayesh, you wanted to say something? Revati is back. Hello, Revati?
sorry, no, I was asking, can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's a little broken.
Please go ahead, Rati.
While we wait for Revati to come back on board, Jayashri, you wanted to say something. I saw your hand raised. Yeah, if you want to just unmute, please.
Thank you. No, all this talk about media just brought to my mind the international film festival we did every alternate year called Abilityfest. And the remarkable, amazing films we got from across the world, globally, from across sometimes 60 countries across the world. And each and every film shown at the festival was extremely positive, extremely inclusive, just accepting disability as a matter of course, just showing empathy to everyone, not just people with disabilities. And I'm also a little happy to say that in the Indian scene today, there are a lot of mainstream commercial cinema which has come out with the theme of disability. Like we had Tare Zameen Par, and we had Margarita with a Straw some time ago, all showing people with disabilities in a beautiful line, beautiful vein. Such movies must be made. Of course, we wish that they are made more. But that is what I call progress of today. And along with the film festival, we had a competition sector called 160 Seconds to Fame. It's just 1 minute in 1 minute spell out what inclusion means to you. And we had a whole lot of media students and people from all walks of life trying to make that 1 minute film because they were going to be adjudged by the stalwarts of the film industry. It was a very big break for them. We had so many people calling us just to find out what does inclusion mean. On the one hand, we were sad that they did not understand the word, but on the other hand, for every film made, for every time a person asked this question, it was 5 to 10 people who are the filmmakers of that 1 minute film whose minds were sensitized. I think we should start looking at what more we can do. The negatives will always stay. It's always better to move on. At least happening. We have made it happen. So let's progress along with that.
Jayashree,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to see video for a bit. So I totally understand what you're, agree with what you're saying because we have traveled this path together with Abilityfest, and we have seen the kind of change in attitude and perception, and also people have gained so much of knowledge about what inclusion is and what attitude changes. Rati, can you just take this forward for a few minutes, and I will put my.
Sure, sure. So I'm just going back to, again, a line from the film which stayed with me. And it's Juseung saying that being an artist, the most important job for him is to make people think in a different way. There was a line there which said, it is about thinking, getting people to think in a different way. And I'm just linking that up to what Juho said, saying, of course, I can't say that my film is going to change the world, but it definitely does contribute to the conversation and it definitely adds to what is already there. So in that sense, it takes it a little further. And we never know when the tipping point is going to be and it will suddenly spread. So whether it's going to be through social media, we've seen this happening with music, seen it happening with films, we've seen it happening in all sorts of crazy ways around the world, where suddenly, most unexpectedly, something would just tip over and capture the imagination of the entire world. So Juseung, Juho, if you want to come in on that in terms of your film, changing the way people think, perspective. I'm not saying changing in a way in which tomorrow it's different, but really just extending that conversation. So what has been your reaction or the reception in Korea? I heard that the film was screened at certain festivals and it was really well received. So maybe you can share that with us, because Ability also, like Jayashree said, has this wonderful festival where they have over the years built up a huge audience and a huge network. So could you just share with us what was the reception in Korea at these various festivals?
Unfortunately, because of the pandemic situation, I didn't have a lot of chance to meet the audiences, but there's first of all, I first experienced the film festival for the visually impaired person. Actually, this is my first film with the audio description. So for me, it was a very fresh experience, and also my feeling was that I have a brother who has visual impairment, but I didn't know much about the impairments, especially when making films or moreover enjoying films. In terms of enjoying films, I didn't know much about how the impaired person can experience the film or how they meet the many art create. So yeah, it was fresh experience for me. And maybe Jason can say more about the conversation with the audiences or his friends or
Well,
Thank
all my friends said it was amazing, you know, that's just like friends thing. But I think I actually showed a trailer with the audio description to my friend who is actually blind, and he was really impressed because one time I remember he was watching kind of like I think it was Netflix show, and he was watching entire episode with an audio description, and I was just like, wow, that's just amazing. I mean, I am a visually impaired as well, but I didn't really know there is a platform like this. And then now I'm making those platform for my documentary, and it was just amazing experience myself. And you know, and audiences, you know, all my friends just saying like it's amazing, and those kind of friend kind of thing, you know.
I think you're being so modest there to say that it's just a friend's appreciation, because all of us who've seen your film have also taken to it and been moved by it. And as Jayashree correctly said, it is really the matter of fact tone, and that it's not sentimentalized. It is just straight off the cuff. That is what really worked and appealed, I think. But there were these lines where you said very clearly, I want my art and music to move people and inspire people, but not as a visually impaired person, not as a person with disability. And you use the term and you say, we are like you. If you believe you can do something, so can we, you know? So it's about an equally balanced possibility. I love that phrase, an equally balanced possibility. It comes in your film towards the end. So this is, I think, what we've been talking all the while also when looking at the work that Ability does. And Jayashree and Janaki and Jayashree, you can come in to tell us a little bit more about that. Revati is back on now as well. So really the fact that when we talk about inclusion, we've got to, of course, think of what we are including and how we are including and what are the barriers to that inclusion, I think, you know, and barriers can be from physical space without ramps. We've got several places in India where there are no ramps and it's very difficult. Barriers could be watching films without audio description, without subtitling. I mean, thankfully, the OTT platforms are bringing a lot of this on, and we can choose to have it on, enable or disable. So Revati, are you back on? I'm just trying to see. She's back off again. Revati is not on there.
I think she's, yeah.
Yeah. Janaki, do you want to come in to just speak a bit about Ability's work in this in terms of providing access? You've done a wonderful job in bringing in the audio descriptors. That was such an eye-opener for me in terms of viewing the film, choosing whether I read the subtitles, choosing whether I tune into the audio description, watching the visual, sometimes maybe not watching the visual. So it gave me so many options to choose from. Janaki?
Yeah, so let me just jump in here. But it's really to say that I think it's about giving people choices. I think that's very important. And we need to ensure that a choice is available for everyone. Whether you choose to use it or not is a different matter. I think that's something that, Jayashree, right from the time the foundation began, I think in many ways ahead of its time, because no one was really thinking on those lines at all. So, I think making things accessible is also a mindset issue. Sometimes because people want, sometimes think, how does it matter, if you have subtitles, or how does it matter if you have audio description? Can't people understand the dialogue? And I remember when we started talking about audio description, the understanding that in our films, particularly in films on the subcontinent, so much happens between the dialogue. And you can completely lose track if you don't know what's going on. So audio description really adds such value to your experience of the film. I think that's really something, but it's about audio description, it's about subtitling. And of course, as you rightly said, it's about physical access as well. But the access means so many things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think really that's been the effort that we've tried to put in, and it's a work in progress. We've come a long way, some way to go, but I think occasions like these are good times to reflect and talk about the way forward as well. So thanks for that.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that with us. Because as I said, such an eye-opener in terms of all the things that we can do. We've been bringing in a lot of Korean theater, for instance, and some of you might have come to those shows. It has always been with subtitles provided because the principal production would have been in Korean. And initially there were questions asked about how do we do this? How do we watch the action on stage and also read? But that disappeared very, very quickly because you were doing it almost unconsciously. If you wanted to refer, you referred. If you were able to catch the action on stage, you didn't refer. But we provide the choice anyway. And I think that's the critical word, choice being provided for you to do it. The Vimeo that we used, we had the film embedded on our website. The Vimeo didn't actually allow for a disable enable button for us to have audio description or to have it. So we just kept it all together, but I think it worked. I mean, personally, I think it worked. I wanted to know your opinion, those of you who've seen the film, if you want to come in and tell us. As Jayashree said, Janaki said, work in progress, but great work in progress. So thank you for that. Okay, Revati, are you back on? I can see you, but can't hear you. I can see your name. Okay, so it's about 5:47 Indian Standard Time. Do we want to get into questions and answers now? And can someone from Ability do that? I don't.
Ma'am, hello.
Hello.
Agil sir have a suggestion.
Yes. Yes.
I want to share a point.
Okay.
Subtitles are there. And it is beautiful. First of all, it is easy to read the subtitles at the same time. Yes, but for the deaf people, if they are not skilled to read the subtitles, they can manage to read the subtitles. But the other problem is in other movies, 2 or 3 people are speaking at the same time. Then there is a confusion occurring that one person is speaking and another person is speaking. Then the subtitles are moving very fast and it is making a little bit confusion regarding that. Who is speaking and who is becoming silent. Then and he is saying that if we are adding a particular color to each conversation, like red, yellow, and it is easy to find who is speaking and who is becoming silent. And for that purpose, I am asking that a color, providing a particular color to each conversation is very good. And in India, 19 years back, many people are fully not aware about the deaf community and the disabled people. But now the time is getting a little bit changed, and many associations are organized and many people are included, like black people and separate kind of movies. Many movies are included and developed in the matter of disabled people. But the problem in India is that we have an inclusion, like in the job sectors. For example, if we are practicing more, and we have to include the deaf people in the society and the filmmaking itself. And we have to help each other, and we have to develop that. We have an inclusion in the filmmaking itself.
Yeah, so Rati, if I can just step in again. No, completely, Akhil. I think that's exactly what I mean. You know, we are taking steps forward. I think in terms of legislation, we're there,
Exactly.
but you know, legislation doesn't change attitudes. Legislation doesn't change many things. So we have a long way to go. But yes, that point is well taken. I was actually just, and if I can jump in with a question, Rati, here for everyone, it's really that, you know, so much has happened. And Juho and Juseung, you have to educate me with regard to Korea. But if I look at India, a lot of things have happened and we've come a long way. But if you were to pick, say, the one or two things that you feel really need to be done to take this inclusion journey forward, what would those be? And if I could, you know, ask, maybe everyone can respond to it. So Rati, I'll leave you to move everyone from one person to another. But
Right.
I was wondering, maybe Sayandeep, would you like to start? Den, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Yeah, so I absolutely totally agree with Akhil and with Jayashree that we need to see what has been done. So that's why I rose my hand to talk about that part, because when we see maybe 20 years back, when Bollywood started to recognize disability in mainstream cinema, and characters were designed on disability. That was a path-breaking, path-finding change. Now, at this point of time, I totally agree with Akhil. That is, as people with disabilities, we need to get involved in filmmaking, and not only film. Janaki, what you asked, I would just like to touch upon that. That is, now we need to integrate all forms of media. That is radio, television, books have been written by people with disabilities, and books have been written on disability factors. That is there. But this kind of quite a few visual media and hearing medias, there is a need of designing of programs where persons with disabilities are going to involve, and that inclusion can happen, and that would be the next step after 20 years back, when the first thing was done to integrate people with disabilities as a storyline in Bollywood. This is the next step that we need to take.
Okay, Juseung, thank you so much. That was something I think that we should all keep in mind as we go forward. I want to just bring in Juho and Juseung for the Korean end of things, if you can give us a perspective from there. To Janaki's question.
I think the problem here is that we're not still have any of exact translation for the word inclusion or acceptance. Especially in a normal life, there's a certain word that professors or politicians use, but as normal life, we don't use that kind of words much. So which means the concept of those words are not familiar with the people. So the first thing we need to do is maybe an education, or maybe tell the people that how the inclusion or acceptance concept is working, how it can be so I think the final goal of inclusion and acceptance is the situation that we don't have to use those words, because people are already included or already accepted. So I think this society is maybe 2 steps away from that goal.
Right. Right, right. Jusang, anything to add to that?
I agree with everything what my brother said, but I think I want to point out that people are actually missing right now is that our real life, we are actually getting better and better, but I think our online like technologies and those kind of things are still kind of need some construction, especially this COVID and pandemic, everything we're using and we are moving everything from offline to online, and including me and all my blind friends and any other friends with disabilities, we all complain about like how certain apps are not really accessible, certain things are not really accessible online, even though they are not offline, or we can't really feel in our real life, but we are using them right now every day, every second. So yeah, I think we actually have to work on those technological kind of things like applications or the word in those machine that we are using every day,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just
I
my
think
thought.
that's a real issue, especially considering the time we now are connecting using technology.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we bring this intervention right to the heart of it, it is going to be extremely difficult. I think that's one of the things that the pandemic has thrown up,
Yeah.
and something that we continue to grapple with. What are we going to do even when we go back to the so-called presentation in physical spaces?
Mm-hmm.
I think this online connect or extension won't go away. So it's now perhaps the right time, and organizations like Ability so well placed to actually take on these questions with a sense of urgency, I think, in terms of how this can be done. I just want to say we've got very little time left. We've been having a good discussion going on, but there are people in the room who might want to ask questions. I think Revati is having a problem with her internet connection. So if you could just type in your questions to the chat box, I could just quickly read it out. If any of you have any questions to ask, please type it in briefly, concisely into the chat box, please. And anyone here with a good connection, if you want to shoot off the question, please do that. Anyone here who would like to ask questions? I see a number of names on the screen.
Also, while we are waiting, Rati, just to say that Rami Seth is here. Rami Seth is with Saksham, which enabled the audio description. So that's something that they've been doing for many years now. In fact, every film at our film festival, every year, we made sure that one film was actually audio described to convey that message. And so really big shout out to Rami and her team for making it happen and making all films as inclusive as possible. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Rami. I think that added so greatly to the film, and it really sparked off an entire conversation about how does audio description work, what are the next steps there. So thanks very much to you and your team for bringing it in, and thank you,
Really
Janaki, for
appreciate it.
introducing us to this wonderful organization. Rami, were you saying something? I think your audio is muted. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying thank you very much. And there are many miles to go still.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, rightly so. Many miles to go is the right phrase.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions coming in? Jayashree, anyone else?
No.
Radhika,
I'm just
want to come in, jump in?
Jayashree?
am I jumping here?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to add that things to be done, the things that person needs, it may go on forever. There's a never ending list of things that a human being requires.
Right.
There's no end to it. But I think the main thing is for everyone to realize that it's not necessary to be born disabled. Disability can be acquired at any point in one's life. And therefore, when you prepare society for a person with disability, you are actually preparing society for all human beings.
Yeah.
Once that thinking comes in, once you start thinking, just ask yourself the question, what would you need if you were me? And go ahead and finding the answer yourself. I think really that should happen, should really make it happen. We should stop comparing a person who can't see with a person who can see. So and so can do this or can't do this. No, a person with disability is not a fool. He knows what he can do or can't do. So that is where you honor, that is where you provide the level playing field. That is what Janaki called access for all. You can't expect a fish to climb a tree. Neither can you expect a cat to swim the oceans.
Right.
Each person is different. So we need to just go about and make that happen. I don't know if I'm asking for the moon, but
No, I think those are extremely sensible words and words that we should take to heart, because like you rightly say, it could happen at any time in life. There's no point of comparing or judging or competing, but we all need to, in our own way, each one of us look for possibilities of inclusion by way of choices provided. Which path other people take or you take is your own, is something that you take step by step, but it needs to be there. I have a question here from Anvita Akshay to everyone. How do we make inclusion in a social setting light rather than the heaviness that exists? Anvita, if you're there, you might want to explain this a little bit more. How do we make it light rather than the heaviness that exists? Are you there? Can you unmute?
So this is Andrea. So I had asked the question. So that
Oh,
was
yes.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So normally in especially in the very basic, because working with very marginalized communities, it's the starting point is very delicate in a social setting. There's always only it starts from a point of pity or sympathy, and it's still very much meeting and being free of themselves is still in pocketed spaces. I've met the best of people when working with the body in the most and exploring in the most riskiest way with in inclusive spaces, but they're all very selective, and I have to choose in a very special place, and it's not very freely open. So the heaviness is, I'm explaining about why does it have to be like how we started. Now we're talking about fitness and health naturally. How can we start making this a conversation that becomes natural at every social setting that we meet? So that was the question posed to everyone.
And this is Andrea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just recognized your voice. It said Anvita there. So Andrea Jacob, who's doing a lot of work in terms of social inclusion, working with marginalized communities, mainly in rural India. And she started a fantastic project called the Kind Capsule, which is just taking off. And it's about providing safe spaces, especially to women and children, to talk about issues, including mental health. So sorry, Andrea, I just had to come in to say that because I was very excited by your project.
Yeah.
Sorry, so your question was directed to someone in particular on the panel here?
No, to everyone, because I've been hearing such amazing stories. I just want to get everyone's perspective, or whoever wants to, it's because the most open mindsets that my learning curve I've got was from inclusive spaces, but I had to, it's not very open to as open as everyone should know. Information wise, it's still very selective. Why can't it be more accessible?
So anyone here, sorry, Andrea, anyone here wants to come in to answer this question or to provide a perspective on this? We're a little over time, and maybe in a couple of minutes we'll have to close. So anyone here who wants to come in? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no. So, Andrea, thank you so much for that. I think that one of our efforts at the foundation, and in fact, it's become part of my DNA, if you know what I mean, is that, to me, disability is relevant in every aspect of life. So whether you're talking about education and employment, the more sort of critical things in life, but equally leisure, travel, hospitality, watching movies, fun, it's relevant everywhere. So for me, we would have crossed that threshold of success really when it becomes, as you said, a matter of fact thing. I'm not thinking about it. If it's a film, I know it will be subtitled, audio described. If I go on a holiday, I can expect that the hotel will have a room which is accessible for me. If I go on a train, I can expect that the announcements will be both visual as well as audio. So when, in my mind, when these things, and I mean, that's the work that we put in every day, is really to make sure that it becomes so much part of the conversation, you don't need to single it out anymore. So it's just there. You expect it, it's there, and no one is surprised by its inclusion anymore. So that's for me something that's important. Yeah. So back to you, Rati.
Yeah. And maybe this is the last question. Thank you, Janaki. That really rounded it up nicely in terms of how we bring everything. As I started at the beginning, it really questions what is normal, what is the norm, who decides this, how do we make it expand, how do we make it include, all of these questions which remain after this panel discussion, and I'm sure will for some time. But I want to end with a question we've had from YouTube, which is for the director. And it says, you lived in the US, Spain, and Korea. What is the biggest difference? So maybe a little off from this, but I think we should do it in the context of this discussion. In terms of acceptance, attitude, change, what has been the biggest difference in these three places that you lived in, the US, Spain, and Korea? So Juseung, Juho, if you want to take this together or separately, please.
I think in the US and in Spain, they are pretty much kind of similar, but in both countries, I don't feel uncomfy going out and being on the street and walking to people and, just being regular. And I guess that's why, because those countries actually accept every, differences. But still in Korea, to be honest with you all, I still feel sometimes uncomfortable to walk, and how people are actually gonna think about my eyes, especially right now, because as you can see, my two eyes color kind of different. And whenever I walk through people or a group of people, I kind of feel like, oh, what are they going to think about me? But in the US, at least I don't think like that. And I was kind of comfy to walk and, just using my magnifier to see the whiteboard and everything. It was just like normal. But in Korea, one of my teacher asked me like what I was doing with the magnifier, and I had to explain what I was doing. And, I think in the US and European countries are more acceptable than Korea, especially Europe, I feel like. Yeah, and I was traveling in Europe, and there was one museum that has a painting that actually blind people can actually touch them. I was like, wow, it's just amazing. Like, how can you do that? And they're just like, well, they are our customers too, and we want them to feel the art as well. So we just make them to touch everything we have. And I was just like so impressed about that. Yeah.
Huh?
I wish.
Yeah, Juho, do you want to add something?
Yeah, as a brother, the big difference is his confidence, I think. It's because of the language, maybe. In a Korean language, there's a way of speaking politely, to a stranger or to older guys. So sometimes that kind of language makes you, less confident, or there's a culture that don't let yourself out too much. It's not a good way. It's not a polite way, but the situation in Spain and US is a little different. So maybe he learned from that confidence from the language itself. So I think that's one of the most important reason that he can speak through the film. He could write it. Yeah,
Speaking of language, I had a couple questions about the language of the film. Like, you're Korea, but why did you make the film in English? And I was just like, I told them again and again, like, I think the language actually has a power, and the way that I learned English was more open to me to talk about those stuff. But the way that I was actually growing up and the way that I actually learned Korean, it actually blocked me more to talk about this kind of stuff than English. That actually makes me more kind of brave in a way to talk about this stuff and be a little bit more comfortable to talk about it, Yeah, I just want to add it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think what travel does to people in terms of opening up perspectives and any kind of intercultural exchange does to people in understanding and respecting another way of looking at something. So your title of your film, symbolically and otherwise, is perfect when it says two different eyes. I think, it's about how you look at it. And as Ability Foundation has said, as you yourself has said, everything is possible and anything is possible, just depends on how you approach it. And if you have an open mind, then the sky is the limit, or as your film ended, the sea is the limit, the landscape where you are is the limit. So much as I'd like to continue this discussion, we're almost 15 minutes over time. Janaki, I hope that's okay with you and the team.
Absolutely.
I could continue for a long time because there's so many things which are now buzzing around. I would encourage you to please send in we have a feedback form which is provided on the site. Please send that back. Please write back to us. We would love to share that with Ability Foundation as well as with the panelists and with the director, writer, Juho Lee. So if we have answers to that, because we've not had too many questions coming in, but I'm sure people are thinking about it and going back to the film. The film is available till the 23rd of September. The link will be accessible. So watch it again. You might find something completely different striking you as you do that. But just a big, big thank you to all of you who've been part of this. Juho and Juseung Lee for sharing the film so generously with us. Ability Foundation for really working so well with us to put this together. Rumi and her team, Saksham, for doing the audio description and for really pulling this together in a very short time, relatively short time, but so effectively. Thank you. And we really look forward to doing more of this more often. But as with everything with the arts, sometimes it's serendipity which brings this to brings it together. And when an opportunity like this comes around, we are always here to support it and see how best we can work together to do this. So thank you once again. Keep in touch, continue the fantastic work you're doing, and keep us informed. Please keep us informed so that we can take this dialogue further. Thank you very much. Take care.